The gunshot echoed across my ranch like a crack of thunder, and my heart sank. My prize bull Titan lay bleeding in the dirt, his massive body still, his eyes wide with shock. He was worth $80,000, a champion bred from years of care, but to me he was family. The men who shot him stood there, rifles in hand, claiming it was an accident. Behind them, a woman's voice barked orders, cold and smug. Linda Harper, the HOA president, had sent them to clean my land, but they'd just destroyed my legacy. She didn't know who I was, or the storm she'd unleashed. It was a Tuesday morning, the sun blazing over the rolling hills of my Texas ranch. The air smelled of hay and wildflowers, and I was fixing a fence in the south pasture when I heard engines roaring. Not my trucks, but heavy machinery, grinding gravel in a way that didn't belong. I dropped my hammer and jogged toward the noise, dust kicking up under my boots. Something felt wrong, like a shadow creeping over the land. When I reached the ridge, I froze. A bulldozer was tearing through my brush, ripping up fences I'd built with my own hands. 3 men with weed eaters slashed at my property line, and another guy, some hired thug with a clipboard, shouted directions like he owned the place. A flimsy HOA sign hung on my gate, claiming fire hazard cleanup. My land wasn't under their rules. It was private, marked mine. I yelled, my voice booming across the field. The men paused, but clipboard guy swaggered over, smirking, chewing tobacco. He waved a paper in my face, saying Linda Harper had ordered mandatory clearing for neighborhood safety. I told him he was trespassing. He laughed, pointing to his cheap security badge, not even official. The paper had Linda's signature, no warning, no legal ground. I was about to argue when the gunshot split the air. Silence followed, heavy and wrong. I sprinted past the bulldozer, heart pounding, and saw Titan on the ground. Blood poured from his neck, soaking the earth. 2 workers stood frozen, one still holding the smoking rifle. Titan, my gentle giant, wasn't just a bull. He'd won state fairs, sired champions, and greeted my kids with a nudge every morning. Now he was gone. The shooter mumbled about self-defense, claiming Titan charged. But I saw the pen gates swinging open, unlatched by the workers' chaos. Titan never charged. He was curious, slow. They'd let him out, confused him, and shot him dead. I pulled out my phone, filming everything. The broken gate, the blood, the HOA sign. The workers shuffled, avoiding my eyes. Clipboard guy tried to hand me the paper again, but I pushed it back. I called the sheriff, voice steady, but fists clenched. While I waited, I stared at Titan, his massive frame still twitching. He was my pride, my proof that hard work paid off. Now he was a carcass because of Linda's orders. The deputy arrived, scribbling notes, but said it'd take time to sort out. The workers weren't arrested. They just drove off, leaving me with a dead bull and a torn-up fence. I stood there, rage burning, but I didn't shout. I'd learned long ago that anger wastes energy. Instead, I planned. Linda thought she could bully me, thought her HOA title gave her power. She didn't know I wasn't just a rancher. A week before, I'd been named to the County Land Management Board, a role with teeth, permits, audits, the kind of leverage that could bury her. That night, I walked my land, the stars bright above. Titan's pen was empty, the air too quiet. I wasn't thinking revenge, not yet. I was thinking justice, the kind that hits harder than a fist. Linda had picked the wrong fight, and I was ready to show her why. I started gathering proof, photos of the damage, the open gate, the fake HOA sign. Neighbors called angry, saying Linda's crew had harassed them too. One sent me a video of the bulldozer on my land, clear as day. I saved all, every piece of weapon. Linda thought she'd won, but she just stepped into a trap she couldn't see. The next morning, I woke before dawn. The image of Titan's blood-soaked body burned into my mind. My coffee went cold as I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the HOA paper with Linda Harper's signature. Her name felt like a taunt. I wasn't going to let her walk away from this. My kids, Emma and Jack, tiptoed downstairs, asking why the ranch felt so quiet without Titan's morning snort. I hugged them tight, promising we'd make things right. They didn't know the half of it, but their sad eyes fueled me. I drove to the HOA office, a fancy building with glass doors and fake plants. Linda was inside, laughing with her assistant, her pearls gleaming under the lights. When I walked in, her smile faded, but she recovered fast, tilting her head like I was a lost dog. "Can I help you, Mr. Carter?" she asked, voice sugary but sharp. I held up a photo of Titan, his body sprawled in the dirt, and set it on her desk. The assistant gasped, but Linda barely blinked. "That's unfortunate," she said, sliding the photo back. "But my team was protecting the community from fire risks. You should thank us." I clenched my jaw, holding back the urge to yell. Instead, I asked why she sent workers to private land without notice. She smirked, saying, "We have authority to act for safety. Your bull shouldn't have been loose." That lie stung worse than the gunshot. Titan wasn't loose. Her men opened his gate. I didn't argue. I just nodded and left, her laugh echoing behind me. She thought I was defeated, but she was wrong. Back home, I called Sarah, a friend at the county clerk's office. We'd known each other since high school, and she hated HOAs as much as I did. I asked for every record on Linda's HOA orders. By noon, she emailed me a stack of files. Linda had sent fire cleanup crews to 5 other properties outside HOA land. 2 were already flagged for illegal overreach. My case wasn't a mistake, it was her pattern. Then my neighbor Tom stopped by, his face red with anger. He said Linda's crew had cut down his orchard last year, claiming it was overgrown. He never fought back, thinking it was legal. Now, he was ready to help. He handed me a USB drive with security footage of Linda's workers on his land, laughing as they wrecked his trees. I watched it, my blood boiling. The same smug attitude. The same fake badges. I thanked Tom and added the video to my folder. That afternoon, I got a call from an unknown number. A nervous voice whispered, "You're not the only one she's hurt." It was Mike, a former HOA worker who'd quit after Linda forced him to fake reports. He said she paid contractors under the table to bully landowners, keeping her hands clean. He offered to meet, but only in secret. I agreed, setting a time at a diner outside town. My gut told me this was big, but risky. What if Linda was watching? At the diner, Mike looked over his shoulder every minute. He slid me a notebook with dates, names, and payments Linda had authorized. One page listed my ranch, marked priority cleanup. My name was circled in red. Why me? Mike didn't know, but he said Linda bragged about teaching troublemakers a lesson. I left the diner with my heart racing, the notebook heavy in my pocket. Linda wasn't just reckless, she was targeting me. But why? I hadn't crossed her before. Then it hit me. A month ago, I'd spoken at a town meeting against HOA expansion. Linda was there, glaring from the front row. She must have seen me as a threat. That night, I spread the files across my table, photos, videos, Mike's notebook, county records. Each piece was a brick in the wall I was building. But I needed more. I called my cousin, Dan, a lawyer who knew land law inside out. He said Linda's actions could violate state property codes, maybe even criminal statutes. He agreed to dig into her HOA's funding. "Give me a week," he said. "This lady's in deep." As I hung up, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Back off, or you'll lose more than a bull." My stomach dropped. I looked out the window, the dark field stretching into the night. Linda was playing dirty, but she didn't know I was already 3 steps ahead. I saved the text, another piece of evidence. The war wasn't just about Titan anymore. It was about my land, my family, my truth. The threatening text kept me awake that night, my mind racing. Who sent it? Linda? One of her goons? I checked the locks on my doors, the ranch feeling too quiet without Titan's steady presence. By morning, my resolve was iron. Linda thought she could scare me, but she just poured fuel on my fire. I wasn't backing down. I drove to the county office to meet Sarah again, my folder of evidence heavier now, with Mike's notebook and Tom's video. Sarah's eyes widened when I showed her the text. "This is serious, James," she said, her voice low. "Linda's playing a dangerous game. She promised to pull more HOA financial records, ones that might show where Linda's under-the-table payments were coming from. As I left her office, my phone rang. It was Dan, my cousin, the lawyer. "You won't believe this," he said, excitement in his voice. "Linda's HOA has been funneling money through a shell company. I found invoices for consulting that match Mike's payment dates." My heart skipped. This wasn't just bullying, it was fraud. Dan said he needed a few days to trace the company, but if it led back to Linda, she'd be done. I thanked him and hung up, feeling the pieces falling into place. But then I saw something that stopped me cold. Across the street, one of Linda's workers, the guy with the clipboard from my ranch, was leaning against a truck, watching me. He didn't move, just stared, his eyes like a predator's. I stared back, refusing to blink. After a moment, he got in his truck and drove off, but my gut churned. They were tailing me. I didn't tell my kids. Emma and Jack were already shaken, asking why I was so quiet at dinner. I smiled, said it was just work, but their worried looks cut deep. I had to protect them, no matter what. That afternoon, I met Tom at his farm to plan our next move. He'd rallied two other neighbors, Lisa and Greg, who'd also been hit by Linda's cleanups. Lisa's garden had been bulldozed, and Greg's fence was torn down for safety. They were angry, ready to fight. We sat around Tom's kitchen table, sharing stories. Greg pulled out a letter from Linda, threatening a $5,000 fine if he didn't comply with her rules. "She's got no right," he growled. "This ends now." I showed them Mike's notebook, and Lisa gasped. "That's the same contractor who ruined my roses," she said, pointing to a name. We agreed to pool our evidence for the county hearing. But as we talked, Tom's dog started barking wildly. I looked out the window and saw a black SUV parked down the road, lights off. "That's been there an hour," Tom whispered. My skin prickled. Were they listening? Following us? I told everyone to stay calm, but we cut the meeting short. Driving home, I kept checking my rearview mirror, half expecting that SUV to tail me. When I got to the ranch, I found a new HOA notice nailed to my gate, claiming I owed $10,000 for unapproved land use. Linda was hitting back, hard. I ripped it down, my hands shaking with rage. That night, I got a call from Mike, his voice shaky. "They know I talked," he said. "Someone slashed my tires today." I told him to lay low, but he dropped a bombshell. "Linda's got a guy on the county board," he said. "He covers for her. That's why she's so bold." My stomach sank. A mole in the county? This fight was bigger than I thought. I asked Mike for the guy's name, but he hung up, scared. I sat in my office, staring at the evidence pile, photos, videos, records, the threatening text. Linda wasn't just a bully. She had a network. But so did I. I called Dan again, telling him about the mole. "I'll sniff him out," Dan said. "But watch your back, James." As I hung up, I heard a noise outside, a low rumble like an engine idling. I grabbed my flashlight and stepped off the porch, the night air cold. My beam caught a glint of metal near the fence line, a truck parked just out of sight. It peeled away before I could get closer. My heart pounded, but I wasn't scared anymore. Linda thought she could intimidate me, but every move she made was another nail in her coffin. I went back inside, locked the door, and added the truck sighting to my notes. The hearing was 2 weeks away, and I was building a case that would bury her. But the mole on the board worried me. Who was it? And what else was Linda hiding? The truck speeding away from my ranch left a knot in my stomach, but I pushed it down. Linda was trying to scare me, but every threat made me sharper, hungrier for justice. Titan's empty pen stared back at me in the morning light, a reminder of what I was fighting for. My kids, Emma and Jack, were at school, but I'd started walking them to the bus stop myself, just in case. Linda's reach felt like it was closing in, and I wasn't taking chances. I called Sarah at the county office, asking if she'd found anything new. "James, you need to see this," she said, her voice tight. She dug up an email from Linda to a contractor, dated the day before Titan was shot. It said, "Clear Carter's land fast. Make it look legal." My blood ran cold. This wasn't just negligence. Linda had planned it. I asked Sarah to forward the email, and she did, along with a warning. "Be careful. She's got friends everywhere." I saved the email, another bullet in my arsenal. Then Dan called with bigger news. He traced Linda's shell company to a guy named Richard Tate, a county board member. The mole. My heart sank. Tate was a quiet guy, always nodding at meetings, but now it made sense. He'd been covering Linda's tracks, signing off on her fake permits. Dan said he'd found payments from Linda's HOA to Tate's personal account, disguised as consulting fees. This was corruption, plain and simple. We've got her, Dan said. But we need to catch Tate in the act. I agreed, but my mind was spinning. How deep did this go? That afternoon, I met Lisa and Greg at Tom's farm again, keeping the blinds shut this time. I showed them the email and told them about Tate. Greg slammed his fist on the table. She's been robbing us blind, he said. Lisa was quieter, her face pale. My sister works for Tate, she whispered. She said he's been acting weird, hiding papers. I leaned forward. Can she get us proof? Lisa nodded, promising to talk to her sister. As we planned, Tom's phone buzzed with a text. You're next. No name, same style as my threat. We all froze, the air heavy. Linda was watching, tightening the screws. I told everyone to save their texts and stay sharp. Driving home, I noticed a car following me, keeping its distance. I took a side road, and it followed. My palms sweated, but I kept calm, pulling into a gas station. The car slowed, then sped off. I caught the license plate and wrote it down, my hand steady but my heart racing. This wasn't just about Titan anymore, it was a war. That night, I got a call from Mike, the ex-HOA worker. He sounded terrified. They broke into my house, he said. Took my laptop, left a note saying keep quiet. I told him to get somewhere safe and promised to protect him. He hesitated, then dropped another bomb. Linda's planning something big at the next HOA meeting, he said. She's going to pin the bull thing on the contractor. Say she didn't know. I gritted my teeth. She was slithering out of blame, but I wasn't letting her. I thanked Mike and hung up, my mind racing. The hearing was 10 days away, and I needed to be ready. The next morning, Lisa called with a game changer. Her sister had found a memo in Tate's office, linking him to Linda's shell company. It listed priority landowners to target, with my name at the top. Why me? The memo mentioned my town meeting speech against HOA expansion. Linda saw me as a threat, someone who could rally others. Now I knew why she'd hit my ranch so hard. I told Lisa to make copies of the memo and hide them. As I hung up, my daughter Emma ran in, holding a crumpled note she'd found by the mailbox. It read, "Your kids are cute. Keep them safe." My blood turned to ice. I hugged Emma, telling her it was nothing, but inside I was burning. Linda had crossed a line. I called Dan, my voice shaking. "She's threatening my family," I said. He told me to file a police report and promised to rush the Tate evidence. I did, but the deputy said it'd be hard to pin on Linda without proof. I wasn't waiting for proof anymore. I went to my safe, pulled out my old security camera, and set it up by the gate. If Linda's goons came back, I'd catch them. That night, I sat with my evidence, emails, memos, videos, texts. Each piece was a step toward justice, but the threat to my kids changed everything. Linda thought she could break me, but she didn't know the man she was fighting. I wasn't just a rancher or a board member. I was a father, and I'd burn her empire to the ground to keep my family safe. The note threatening my kids burned in my mind, but I buried my fear under action. Linda had gone too far, and I was done playing nice. I checked the security camera by the gate every hour, its red light blinking in the dark. Nothing yet, but I knew she'd try again. My kids, Emma and Jack, sensed something was wrong, asking why I kept looking out the window. I told them I was just tired, but their hugs felt tighter, like they knew I was lying. I had to end this for them, for Titan, for every neighbor Linda had crushed. I called Dan first thing in the morning, updating him on the note. "That's intimidation," he said, voice hard. "We can use it in court, but we need to tie it to her." He'd sent Tate's financial records to a friend at the state auditor's office, who confirmed the payments were illegal. Tate was in deep, and Linda was his puppet master. Dan said the auditor was building a case, but it'd take time. Time I didn't have. I needed to hit Linda now, before she struck again. Then Sarah called with a bombshell. She'd found a deleted HOA email, recovered from the server, where Linda told Tate to handle Carter's hearing. It was dated a week ago, proof she was rigging the county board. My heart raced. This wasn't just a smoking gun, it was a cannon. I asked Sarah to print it and keep it safe. James, she's desperate, Sarah warned. Desperate people do crazy things. I nodded, hanging up, my mind on that black SUV I'd seen at Tom's. Were they planning something worse? That afternoon, I went to the HOA meeting, uninvited but unstoppable. Linda was at the front, her smile fake as ever, talking about community safety. The room was packed, neighbors nodding like she was a saint. When she saw me, her eyes narrowed, but she kept talking, calling Titan's death a tragic misunderstanding. I stood up, holding the photo of Titan's body, and walked to the front. The room went quiet. This isn't a misunderstanding, I said, voice steady. You sent armed men to my land, Linda. They killed my bull, and now you're threatening my kids. Gasps filled the room. Linda laughed, nervous. That's absurd, she said. You're upset, I get it, but don't make up stories. I pulled out the crumpled note about my kids and held it up. This was left at my house. Want to explain it? Her face paled, but she doubled down. I don't know anything about that. Maybe you wrote it yourself. The crowd murmured, some believing her, others unsure. I didn't argue. I just left the photo on her table and walked out, her voice shaking as she tried to regain control. That night, Tom called, panicked. They hit my barn, he said. Smashed the locks, spray-painted back off on the wall. I told him to take pictures and file a report. Linda was lashing out, but every move was sloppy, leaving a trail. I checked my camera footage and froze. At 2 a.m., a figure in a hoodie had crept near my gate, holding something shiny. A knife? They didn't touch anything, just stared at the camera, then left. My stomach churned, but I saved the clip. It was another piece of her puzzle. The next day, Lisa's sister delivered the biggest twist yet. She'd overheard Tate on a call, begging Linda to call off the dogs because the auditor was closing in. Tate was cracking, scared of jail. Lisa's sister also found a second memo listing escalation plans for me and Tom, including accidents to scare us. My hands shook as I read it. Linda wasn't just threatening, she was plotting. I called Dan, who said we could use the memo to force Tate to flip on Linda. Get him to talk, Dan said, and she's finished. I agreed, but it was risky. Tate was a cornered animal, and cornered animals bite. That evening, I got a call from an unknown number. A woman's voice, low and shaky, said, "Meet me at the old mill, midnight. I know what Linda's planning." My gut screamed trap, but I couldn't ignore it. Was this another of Linda's tricks, or someone ready to betray her? I told Dan where I was going, just in case, and grabbed my flashlight. At the mill, the air was thick with dust, the silence eerie. A figure stepped out, Lisa's sister, Karen. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "Tate's my boss, but I can't let this go on." She handed me a USB drive. It's everything, Linda's orders, Tate's deals, even her plan for the hearing. Before I could ask more, headlights flashed outside. Karen gasped. They followed me. We ducked behind a crate, my heart pounding, as footsteps crunched closer. Linda's game was closing in, but I had the USB, and I wasn't letting it go. The footsteps outside the old mill grew louder, gravel crunching under heavy boots. My heart hammered as I gripped the USB drive Karen had given me, its weight like a ticking bomb. Karen's eyes were wide with fear, her breath shaky. "They'll kill us," she whispered. I motioned for her to stay quiet, pulling her deeper behind the crate. The headlights outside swept across the mill's broken windows, casting shadows that danced like ghosts. I peeked through a crack and saw two men, one holding a flashlight, the other a crowbar. They weren't here to talk. I whispered to Karen, "Stay low. We're getting out." She nodded, trembling. I scanned the mill, spotting a rusted back door half hidden by crates. We crawled toward it, the men's voices growing closer. "Check inside," one growled. "She's here somewhere." My stomach twisted. They were after Karen, but I was the real target. We reached the door, and I pushed it open, wincing as it creaked. The men froze, their flashlight beams swinging our way. "Run," I hissed, shoving Karen out. We sprinted into the woods, branches snapping under our feet. The men shouted, chasing us, their lights bobbing in the dark. My lungs burned, but I kept Karen ahead, guiding her through the trees. We ducked behind a fallen log, holding our breath as the men's boots stomped past, cursing. After a tense minute, their voices faded. I checked the USB, still safe in my pocket. Karen was shaking, tears in her eyes. "I didn't know it'd go this far," she said. "Linda's lost it." I told her to go to her sister's and stay hidden. She nodded and slipped away, leaving me alone in the dark. I made it back to my truck, my mind racing. The USB was my ace, but those men meant Linda was desperate. At home, I locked every door and checked on Emma and Jack, sleeping soundly. Their peaceful faces hardened my resolve. I plugged in the USB and opened the files. My jaw dropped. It had everything: Linda's emails to Tate, fake invoices, even a plan to bribe a hearing official to dismiss my case. One file listed accidents for me, Tom, and Lisa, including a staged barn fire. Linda wasn't just corrupt. She was dangerous. I copied the files to a cloud drive and sent them to Dan, telling him about the mill chase. "This is enough to bury her," he replied. "But we need Tate to talk." I agreed, but the hearing was a week away, and Linda was spiraling. The next morning, I got a call from Tom. "You need to see this," he said, voice tight. I drove to his farm, where he showed me his barn's security footage. It caught the same two men from the mill, spray painting threats the night before. But the real shock was their truck's license plate. It matched the one I'd seen tailing me. Tom's face was grim. "They're not stopping," he said. I showed him the USB files, and his eyes lit up. "We've got her now," he said. But then Lisa called, panicked. "My sister's gone," she said. "Karen didn't come home last night." My heart sank. Had Linda's men found her? I told Lisa to meet us at the sheriff's office and bring the memo she'd found. We filed a missing person report, but the deputy was skeptical, saying Karen might have just left town. I didn't buy it. Linda was tying up loose ends. That afternoon, I got a text from Mike, the ex-HOA worker. "Tate's meeting Linda tonight at her office," he said. "He's scared, wants out. You can catch him." My pulse quickened. This was my chance to flip Tate, but it screamed trap. I called Dan, who said, "Go, but take backup." I asked Tom to come, and we drove to the HOA office, parking out of sight. The lot was dark, Linda's car already there. We crept closer, hiding behind a dumpster. Through the window, I saw Linda and Tate arguing, her face red, his hands waving. "You're sinking us," Tate yelled. Linda slammed her desk. "Fix it, or you're done." I recorded it on my phone, every word gold. But then a third voice cut in, a woman's, muffled. My blood froze. Was that Karen? Before I could move, headlights flared behind us. A truck screeched into the lot, the same one from the mill. Tom grabbed my arm. "They're onto us." We bolted for my truck, tires squealing as we peeled out. The truck chased us, its lights blinding in my mirror. I swerved onto a back road, losing them in the dark, but my hands shook. We'd gotten the video, but Karen might be inside, and Linda was one step ahead. I dropped Tom off and sped home, the USB and video burning a hole in my pocket. The fight was bigger than Titan now. It was life or death. The chase from the HOA office left my nerves raw, but the video of Linda and Tate arguing was worth the risk. I played it back at home, their voices sharp through my phone. Tate's panic, Linda's rage. It was a crack in her armor. But Karen's muffled voice haunted me. Was she trapped in that office? My kids were asleep, their soft breathing a reminder of what I was fighting for. I checked the security camera again, its footage empty, but my gut uneasy. Linda was cornered, and cornered snakes strike hard. I sent the video to Dan, who called immediately. "This is dynamite," he said. "Tate's ready to break. We need to get him before Linda does." I told him about Karen's disappearance, and he went quiet. "If she's hurt, it's on Linda," he said. "Meet me at the sheriff's tomorrow. We're pushing this now." I agreed, but sleep didn't come. Karen's scared face at the mill kept flashing in my mind. The next morning, I dropped Emma and Jack at school, scanning the parking lot for that black truck. Nothing, but I wasn't relaxed. At the sheriff's office, Dan and I met with Deputy Harris, who'd been slow on my case before. I showed him the USB files, the video, and the memo about accidents. His eyes widened at Linda's plan for a stage barn fire. "This is serious," he said, finally listening. I told him about Karen, the mill chase, and the truck. He promised to look for her and pull Linda in for questioning, but I saw doubt in his eyes. "She's got friends in high places," he admitted. My heart sank. Even the law was scared of her. As we left, Dan got a call from his auditor friend. "Tate's bank account just got a big deposit," he said. "Linda's paying him to stay quiet." I clenched my fists. She was buying loyalty, while Karen was missing. Dan said we had to confront Tate before he skipped town. We drove to his house, a fancy place with a gated driveway. He was loading bags into his car, looking jumpy. I stepped out, blocking his path. "Going somewhere, Richard?" I asked, voice calm but hard. His face paled. "I don't know anything," he stammered. I played the video on my phone, Linda's voice booming. "Fix it, or you're done." Tate's shoulders slumped. "She's got me trapped," he whispered. "If I talk, I'm dead." I leaned in. "If you don't, you're going to jail. Help me, and I'll protect you." He hesitated, then nodded. "Meet me tonight, County Park, 9 p.m. I'll bring proof." My pulse raced. This was it. Tate could end Linda. But as we drove away, I saw that black truck again, parked down the street. They were still watching. That afternoon, Tom called with bad news. His farm's water line had been cut, flooding his fields. "It's her," he said, voice shaking. "She's hitting us where it hurts." I told him about Tate, urging him to stay strong. Then Lisa called, sobbing. "They found Karen's car," she said. "Empty, by the river." My stomach dropped. I rushed to the sheriff's office, where Harris showed me a photo of the car, abandoned, with a note inside, "Stop digging." I knew it was Linda, but Harris said they needed more to arrest her. Rage boiled inside me, but I kept it locked down. I had to focus on Tate's meeting. That night, I parked at the county park, the air thick with tension. Dan was with me, both of us armed with phones to record. Tate showed up, clutching a folder, his eyes darting. "This is everything," he said, handing it over. "Linda's bribes, her plans, all of it." I opened it, bank statements, emails, even a contract to frame me for arson. My hands shook. This could destroy her. But before I could thank him, a gunshot rang out. Tate screamed, clutching his arm, blood seeping through his sleeve. Dan yanked me behind a tree as tires screeched. The black truck roared past, its window down, a rifle glinting. Tate was on the ground, groaning. I called 911, my voice steady despite the chaos. "Stay with me, Richard," I said, pressing my jacket to his wound. Police and an ambulance arrived fast, whisking Tate away. Dan grabbed the folder, still safe. As we drove home, my phone buzzed with a text, "You're next." I gripped the wheel, my kids' faces flashing in my mind. Linda had shot her last warning. The hearing was 3 days away, and I had Tate's proof, the USB, and a bullet to show the county. She thought she could silence me, but I was ready to make her scream. The gunshot in the park echoed in my head as I prepared for the county hearing, 3 days after Tate's attack. My kids, Emma and Jack, hugged me tight that morning, sensing the weight on my shoulders. I promised them everything would be okay, but the text saying, "You're next," lingered like a shadow. Linda had drawn blood, but I had her empire in my hands, Tate's folder, the USB, the video, and years of her lies. Titan's death started this war, and I was ending it. I met Dan at the courthouse, his face grim but hopeful. Tate was alive, recovering in the hospital, and he'd given a statement to the sheriff, naming Linda as the one who ordered the park shooting. The black truck's driver, one of her contractors, was arrested, his rifle matching the bullet. Karen was still missing, and that cut deep, but Lisa swore she'd keep searching. We walked into the hearing room, packed with neighbors, reporters, and county officials. Linda sat at the front, her suit crisp, her smile forced. She thought she could charm her way out, but her eyes flickered when she saw me, clutching a thick binder. The chair, a no-nonsense woman named Ellen, called the hearing to order. Linda spoke first, her voice smooth, calling Titan's death a contractor error, and my claims exaggerated. She denied knowing about threats or bribes, blaming Tate for rogue actions. The crowd murmured, some buying her act. Then it was my turn. I stood, heart steady, and laid out the truth. I showed the email where Linda ordered my land cleared, the memo listing accidents, and Tate's bank records tied to her shell company. Gasps filled the room when I played the video of her yelling at Tate, her voice venomous. "Fix it, or you're done," echoed off the walls. I held up the note threatening my kids, my voice cracking as I described finding it. Then I dropped the final blow, Tate's hospital statement, recorded that morning, confessing Linda's orders to silence me, even at the park. The room went silent, heavy with shock. Ellen asked Linda to respond. Her lips trembled, her papers useless. I didn't mean for this," she stammered. "It was a mistake. Nobody bought it." Her mask was gone, her lies exposed. But the real twist came from Deputy Harris, who stepped forward, face grim. "We found Karen," he said. "She was locked in a storage unit, alive but shaken. Linda's contractor confessed to holding her on her orders." Lisa sobbed in the back, relief flooding her face. Linda's head dropped, her hands shaking. The board voted unanimously to suspend her HOA authority and recommended criminal charges for fraud, intimidation, and attempted murder. Linda was escorted out, her heels silent now, her empire dust. The room erupted in whispers, but I felt no joy, just a quiet justice settling in. That night, I got a call from Ellen. The county wanted me to join the Land Oversight Board permanently, not just as a member, but as chair. "You know this land better than anyone," she said. I accepted, thinking of Titan, his steady gaze, his legacy. The next day, I visited the breeder who'd raised Titan, a gruff man named Hank. He showed me a vial, Titan's genetics, preserved in frost. "He's not gone," Hank said, voice rough. "You can bring him back." My throat tightened. Titan's bloodline would live, a new bull to carry his name. The lawsuits came fast. Linda faced jail time. Her contractor turned state's evidence, and Tate pleaded guilty for a lighter sentence. The HOA paid damages to me, Tom, Lisa, and Greg, enough to rebuild what Linda broke. Neighbors elected a new president, one who listened. Linda's name vanished from the community, her house sold, her reputation a warning to every HOA in Texas. A month later, I stood by Titan's pen, a new bronze plaque gleaming. Titan, champion, heart of the ranch. Emma and Jack helped me plant flowers around it, their laughter healing the scars. A young bull, Titan's son, snorted in the field, his eyes fierce but kind, just like his father. I watched him, feeling the ranch breathe again. Linda thought power came from titles and threats, but she forgot the strength of truth, of roots, of standing firm on your land. That was her mistake. The moral hit me clear: no bully, no matter how loud, can outlast the quiet power of justice. I walked back to the house, the sun setting, knowing Titan's legacy wasn't just a bull. It was the fight I'd won, the future I'd built, and the peace I'd earned for my family.